everyone, I'm Dee from Combination Horsemanship, and you might also know me from Ask the Trainers. We decided that it would be fun to put a challenge to our members with an exercise that we enjoy and see if maybe you could try it at home and post some video responses. We are on a yard in Hertfordshire, just outside London in the UK. The owner of these horses is kind enough to let us use them for videos, but unfortunately we are quite close to the main road, so I apologize for any noise you hear in the background. Your challenge this month is going to be to try and do some target training with your horse. If you know me from Ask the Trainers, you know that this is an exercise I absolutely love and that I suggest it for lots of different situations and lots of different contexts. Target training is where you get your horse to touch a target with some part of their body. So I'm going to be demonstrating targeting with their muzzle, with their nose, but you can expand this to targeting with other body parts, say feet or a hip or a shoulder, to make it more complicated. Often when I suggest target training on Ask the Trainers, it's as a confidence building exercise or as a focusing exercise to keep your horse more interested in you than things that they might find distracting in their environment. For example, if you have a horse with separation anxiety, that they're buddy sour, target training can be a really great way to start to get them to move away from the other horses and want to spend more time with you. Target training is also a really great introduction to using positive reinforcement, and the reason for that is that with positive reinforcement it's really important that you reward the right thing and you don't accidentally reward the wrong thing. It's a really powerful tool, but that means that you can teach the wrong thing really easily. With target training it's very clear cut, either they're doing it or they're not. We're going to go through some of the things you need before you get started. The first thing you're going to need is obviously some kind of reward, and I suggest you use food because it's going to be the most effective. It's really important that you get the right food for your horse. You might think that the best food to use is something that gets your horse really excited, that they really love, their favorite treat. In actual fact, it's better not to do that. It's better to use something that just about motivates them, but that they don't love too much. A horse can become quite frustrated if they're really wanting that food that you're offering. So in my case, I use this pelleted feed. In the UK, people call these pony nuts, but I'm aware that they're not called that in the US. So you'll have to search around and find something that's appropriate. These are low calorie, and I only use a few of them at a time, so not very many, and I keep them in this little, it's a chalk bag actually, my little treat bag that I have around my waist. You can use something like alfalfa cubes or hay cubes, anything really that your horse isn't going to love too much, but it's going to be just enough to motivate them. The next thing you're going to need is an appropriate target. Now, you could use anything for this, it doesn't really matter. You can even use the handle end of a schooling whip, for example, but it is best to use something that's quite distinct for your horse that they don't tend to respond to in any other context. So I'll show you what I use, but you can use whatever you want. So this here is my target stick, and it's basically just a piece of bamboo with a tennis ball attached to the end. So you can make it out of absolutely anything you want, it doesn't really matter. The reason I like this is because it also has quite a long reach, and you'll see that as what you're asking becomes more complicated, that becomes quite useful. The other thing you're going to want to have for any kind of positive reinforcement training is a bridge signal or marker signal. What this is a sound that you make to mark the exact moment when the horse has done the behavior that you want. And that means that you can start to reward them at a distance and walk over with the food. And even though the food is coming a little bit late, it doesn't matter because your horse has just heard that sound and they know they did the right thing. Now, you may have heard of clicker training. So in clicker training, people will use a clicker to make that sound, and that's useful because it's a very distinctive, repeatable sound. But you can use anything. I personally prefer to use a voice signal, and in this demonstration I'm just going to be using the word yes. So it doesn't really matter what it is. What does matter is that it's consistent and that you use the same thing all the time, and ideally it should be something that your horse doesn't hear in too many other contexts. So yes may not be ideal for you, but you could, for example, to give you an idea, do something like with your mouth. The other thing you want to think about when doing any kind of positive reinforcement training is where you're doing it. So you'll see that I'm going to do it in this open field. The horses have access to this all the time at the moment, So it's not too exciting, there isn't fresh grass growing, but the horse is going to have access to food if he wants it. And this is really useful because it reduces frustration. So if he does get frustrated, he can just walk away, and that's fine. That should be a signal to you that what you were asking him to do was a bit too much, or you did it for too long. And that just means you have to recalibrate and readjust what you're asking for next time. So when you first start target training, you're going to be using your horse's natural curiosity a little bit to get them to touch the tip of the target with their nose. It's okay if they touch somewhere else on the target. To begin with, you have to be quite forgiving and just take what they give you, and you can gradually become more and more strict about it. Now, Imoken, who we're using here today, has done this a couple of times before, so he'll probably just go straight for it, but I might get a chance to show you what happens if he doesn't. So touch, yes, good boy. Touch, yes. So Imoken is an Arab gelding. Touch, yes. And he's about early teens. Touch, yes. He does get ridden. He's a fairly normal kind of riding horse. Touch, yes. But any horse can benefit from doing this kind of activity. Touch. So there you have an example where he's not doing what I want. Yes. I just waited until he did and then said yes and gave him the reward. Touch. Nope. It's okay if he's itchy. Yeah. No. Come on. Yes. Touch. Yes. So when you start doing this, just keep in mind that your horse can't see directly in front of them. Touch. I'm just going to wait. Yes. So just put it out to the side. Yes. A little bit, just so you can be sure that they can see it with their eyes. Touch. Yes. Touch. Yes. And you see that right now all I'm doing is just putting it side to side. Yes. Touch. Yes. Now, as he gets better at this, you can start to be a bit more challenging by putting it low, for example. Touch. Yes. Or you can put it higher. Touch. Yes. And Imoken's a horse that will be very curious. Yes. And he'll touch things with his mouth. Touch. Yes. So this comes quite naturally to him. But your horse might not. Touch. Yes. So it might take a little bit longer depending on the personality of your horse. Touch. Yes. So I'm going to start challenging him a little bit more here. Touch. Yes. By getting him to move a little bit more than he was before. So watch his feet. Touch. Yes. I'm going to try and turn him around a little bit. Touch. Yes. And back this way. Touch. Yes. There we go. As with all things you do with horses, you want to do it from both sides. Touch. Yes. And particularly when you're starting out, your horse might be a bit confused by that. Touch. Yes. But obviously Imoken has done this bit, so he does know what he's doing. Touch. Yes. Touch. Yes. I'm going to try and do a full circle now, but we'll see. Yes. And touch. Yes. So at the moment I am saying touch, but he doesn't really understand that touch. Yes. He's just touching the target because he can see the target. Touch. Over time, as he gets better at it, I can start to be more demanding. Touch. And only reward him if I've actually asked him to do so with the voice command touch. Yes. But right now, I'm quite happy for him to just touch it when he sees it. Yes. So when you're doing this at home, if you want to take it a step up, What you can do is put obstacles in your way, like a trot pole, touch, yes. And get him to go over it, touch, yes. And that makes it just a little bit more challenging, touch, yes. And of course you can also pick up the pace, ask the horse to trot to get to it, touch, yes. Or ask them to go further. Touch. Yes. Touch. Yes. So you can also start to use it to get the horse to stretch. Just a little bit side to side. Yes. I've been doing this with quite a short stick so far. Touch. Yes. Which means that he might have just learned to touch, yes, quite close to my body, touch, yes. And ultimately I want him to be able to target the stick no matter where I'm standing, touch, yes. So I can actually test this because I have a long target stick by extending it, touch, yes. And as you can see, he still went for the bit at the end like I wanted him to. Touch. Yes. Touch. So now we see though that is a little bit more challenging because I'm here and the target is down there. So he has to work it out. Yes. And he did. Well done, Imogen. Touch. Yes. You may be wondering how long a target training session should last. This is something that's going to be down to you and your horse. It's a very individual decision. But my advice to you would be to keep it really short, and by that I mean 5 minutes or less, to start with at least. And your aim should always be to make sure that when you're done and you finish the session, your horse is still wanting to do more. So end before they lose interest. Now, if your horse does lose interest, it's really not the end of the world. Give them a break, come back to it later, and just do a little bit at a time. And you should find that over time your horse's focus increases and you can do it for longer and longer and ask for more and more complicated things. Hopefully that's given you some idea of how to get started with target training, and hopefully you've also been inspired to try some new things and maybe take it a bit further depending on how far along you get. Jessica and the rest of the admin team at ATT Trainers are always coming up with all these fun and interesting ideas to try and get members more involved. I'm hoping that this is a really fun challenge for everybody and that we can all learn something new from our horses and of course from each other. I'm going to say goodbye and thank you to Imogen. And if you have any questions, need any help, remember that I'll be on hand to answer anything, and so will the other trainers.